Welcome to the Octopod. I'm Kyle Davis, head of the Office of the CTO. Join us as we dive into the latest technologies and trends shaping business. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just looking to stay ahead in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Let's unlock opportunities with technology together. Let's jump in.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a special edition where today we're joined by our friends from Microsoft to talk about this topic of Cloud Beyond IaaS. The series will be divided into 15 parts. We're going to start with some very strategic conversations, and then we're going to delve into the technical detail that sits under the hood to give you a full view of how you can optimize your cloud costs and deliver more value as part of your investments. So guys, do you want to introduce yourself? Wendy?
Hello Rob, I'm Wendy, Carstairs from Microsoft, and I help our partners get the most out of the Microsoft platform so that we can jointly help our customers achieve more.
Excellent. And Will?
Hi Rob, I'm Will Barlow. I'm at CDW, Microsoft Solutions Practice Lead. We're a team of really talented architects to help design and modernise cloud environments.
Excellent. Thanks both. Let's get into it. The question really got to answer to start with is, what does cost optimization mean to everyone that's listening? Because it's quite a broad topic, and how we're going to tie these 15 episodes. That sounds like a lot of content for people to consume. The reality is that this optimization conversation is the anchor for the whole series. Everything that comes after this is about how will we achieve it. But the reality at the start is what does it mean? And I think that's where it'd be great to get both of your views on what does this mean to you personally. Wendy, maybe we'll come to you first and get your thoughts.
Thanks, Rob. I like to think about cloud as actually it's enabling everyone to do more with what you have. So if business is about delivering value to customers and gaining more from what you've got, then being able to deliver more value through the infrastructure that you have and where your applications are is really key for me. So business value, really.
Business value, yeah, that makes sense. And Will, what does it mean from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think of cost optimization, I think of it as a kind of constant challenge, a constant process. It's never a one and have done. It's going to take quite a change in culture. And I think of cloud as very much like a utility, that you have to look at what you're consuming and you have to look at optimizing it regularly. And if you think of the amount of changes that are going on in those cloud environments, not just from what's already been deployed, but what Microsoft are releasing every single year, it means that everyone is constantly having to reevaluate some of those technologies and how they're consuming it. So in many ways, for me, I think of it as a utility. I think of it almost like as an energy bill that needs to be constantly optimized and evaluated. And I think when you think of it like that, it helps you stay on your feet a bit more.
Makes sense. So I guess we've got these two sort of core themes here, haven't we? One is about, as you said, Will, how do we optimize the actual cost? And then from your perspective, Wendy, how do we leverage the platform to deliver value from a business perspective, which is an optimization thing in itself, but not the traditional, how do I make this VM run cheaper, or how do I reduce this line item on a bill specifically? So I think that's a great overall theme. But I mean, Will, you've talked before about sort of approaches to cloud migration and how that's put people in a position where the conversation is about cost optimization and not about value. What have you seen in that space?
Often really is how you think about what's driving you to cloud. And I've seen many sort of cloud first approaches where change has been done to the organization. Someone said, hey, we're going to go there regardless. And then sometimes it can be forced on an organization and they'll think, oh, I'll move everything to cloud, I'll lift and shift it all, and then I'll start to modernize. And then what can sometimes happen is that change program doesn't always come to fruition. And literally moving all of your infrastructure and putting up in a public cloud often probably won't save you the money that you're thinking that you need. And I've heard someone refer to it before as being kind of on cloud rather than in it. If you really want to take advantage of public cloud, it's best perhaps to look at what the right workloads are that are fit for public cloud usage and what the optimal architecture should be around those workloads to leverage it appropriately, so that, you know, for example, if you've got a very scalable workload that's got a very spiky demand pattern, in that regard, you would look at maybe more PaaS services so that your application can scale better and the infrastructure is more cost efficient. And I think when you don't take that into account, you kind of move over there and you don't change also the people and the practices that sit around that infrastructure, that's when you can get into some trouble.
And there's more about that sort of considered approach then, isn't it? And as we say at CDW, that sort of right workload, right platform mantra means that actually let's not follow the hype. Let's do the right thing for the business at the right commercial point. And to your point, Wendy, we want to get to that value conversation for the customer faster than just the sort of lift and shift workload piece. But Do you see a similar thing to Will? I mean, what do you see from people's cloud migration journeys over the last 5 or 10 years?
Well, absolutely. It's the panacea is getting to the business value and getting there as quickly as possible. And sometimes that's achievable in the short term, and sometimes it's medium term. And it's never an all or nothing approach. There's a journey. There is some items will still be left on-prem because there are reasons for that. Some items will still have been moved into the cloud, and different clouds. Having everybody have everything in one cloud provider just isn't the reality. So it's really important to have an ability to manage that infrastructure wherever it is. So having a cloud-first approach to your management tools can allow you to have visibility across everything, whether it's on-prem, whether it's in Azure, whether it's in other cloud providers, whether it's somewhere in between in hybrid. So one of the things we found is really important is to have that single management control plane across the whole piece, so you get complete visibility of everything that you're managing. So from a cost optimization point of view, visibility is number one, and having the management tools in place can be really helpful for that.
And that's, I guess, got to form part of an operational model change for the customer. They've got to think about how they do things differently. Otherwise, they're just going to be doing the same thing again somewhere else and potentially not seeing the value that they've been sort of promised as the dream.
I think there's a really good point there, Wendy, that you made, in that there is still quite a lot of swivel chair practice that goes on. Not everyone's got these platforms tightly integrated into sort of an ITSM or a cloud management system, and a lot of the processes that need to sit around really effective management and cost optimization perhaps aren't done. A lot of migrations start with, a small part of an environment that will be over there as a project that then, needs to be built around, and the other supporting technology around it needs to be built. And I also think the cost, when we think around cost optimization, there is a hidden cost, if you will, that we look at Azure spend, but the management practices and all the rest of it that might sit around it are equally important when we think around organizations perhaps are kind of looking after 3 or 4 different environments.
No, it makes sense. And I mean, Wendy, you talked about visibility. I mean, there's nothing clearer than if you don't know what you have, how do you manage it, how do you optimize it, etc. But what do you see as the focus? And once you have that visibility, where do you see customers sort of going first from a cost optimization perspective, where they try to attain that existing estate?
Well, absolutely. Visibility then leads to the opportunity to do resource utilization and really looking at what you've got, making the best use of what you got. Do they need so much of one thing? Is there an opportunity to do reservations? Can you do reserved instances and get better pricing? So once everything's in one place and you've got the visibility, you can start doing some optimization and the resources that you've got.
And Will, what do you see as sort of practical first steps for a customer that's wants to tame that existing IaaS estate that they have in the cloud?
Yeah, I think visibility is massively important at the beginning, but I think understanding how the resources are being created and what they're being created for is a really good question to start off with. And I think of those killer questions: what is this virtual machine doing? What is this storage being used for? Are really good questions. And I think some of that comes back down to landing zone design, and it comes back down to governance and policies that sit around it. Once you start clearing up that mess and put some processes around how things are created and governed and effectively labelled, you can then right-size them appropriately. And then after that, then look at things like using committed discounts and savings plans, RIs, and things like that. But
so it's a bit of a journey, really, and I guess that's where we set up our Microsoft practice to help customers on that journey, both starting out, but also they've already started that journey and maybe aren't getting all of the value that they were promised up front. And I guess that's our segue really there to the second part of our conversation. The one is about cost, but actually the real power of the cloud is the value it brings from a business perspective. And I know, Wendy, that's something you're quite passionate about yourself. So what are your thoughts on how customers should be really leveraging the Azure platform?
Of course, the beauty of when you are in a native cloud environment is just the speed at which you can deploy new services, new applications. Customer value is so often tied to the applications, the software you can use to interface with them, to interface to them, and to deliver services to them. So the speed at which you can design, deploy, and spin up new applications and services is massively brought down because you don't have that time to procure, time to deploy that you might have had on-prem. And then on top of that, you can be much, much closer to these cloud native services, particularly AI services, but particularly as well the data platforms and the huge data lakes that you can pour into Azure if you need it. For example, with Fabric that's now available to our customers. And of course, we can deliver better performance through the scale of the Azure cloud, not just the performance of the data center technologies underneath, but also the hyperscale that is available to give you better performance out to all your customers wherever they are in the world.
Yeah, and I think that global scalability thing is part of it. I was talking to a customer, a very UK-centric organisation in the retail sector last week, and you'd have thought that, why would they ever need global scale? I mean, they're a UK retailer, but someone decided to outsource a help desk to somewhere on the other side of the world, and then said to IT, we need 400 remote desktops tomorrow, please. Luckily, they'd already started their AVD POCs 18 months earlier. They've been running it for various use cases. And the answer from IT for once was, yes, of course you can have that business, away you go. And they saved some considerable amount of money by being able to activate that outsourcing contract at pace. If they'd been in a traditional data center world, the answer from IT would have been no, sorry, and they'd have missed that opportunity. And I think that really, for me, is the crux of why organizations need to leverage public cloud providers, is that flexibility and scale it brings to them on demand.
And love that you say flexibility, because that is absolutely what it's about, because being able to do things faster doesn't mean to just being able to do it faster, but maybe undo it faster as well when you don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
I like to think of that as just the speed of being able to make mistakes and learn and fail certain things as well. That's ultimately where we all learn, from making mistakes and trying new things, and the fact that you can do that so quickly feels a great use case for public cloud for me.
Yeah, and I think another focus on the conversation here is obviously that organizations are looking at doing two core things, aren't they? Grow revenue, reduce costs. At the end of the day, everything else fits within one of them bubbles somewhere. And if you can do things at the speed and agility that we've talked about, then you have them opportunities to take advantage of new business lines, reducing cost, increasing performance, delivering better services. That they're the real value that customers should be getting out of cloud, not trawling through line items of bills that they don't care about at the end of the day. The other thing that I think is really important for us to touch on near the end of this is people. Everyone talks about skills shortages. They talk about how expensive people are these days. And realistically, we want these people to be driving innovation, not managing storage and servers and networking where they can. So I don't know, what are you seeing as far as that sort of like unlocking innovation and people capabilities within our customers?
Oh, well, if doing more than what you have, you can do it faster, you can do it better. And we actually believe you do it with happier staff as well, because a lot of that management time and effort can be moved, doesn't need to be done anymore, freeing up the people to do the innovation, come up with the new ideas, being able to focus and work on those new workloads, those new applications, those new minimum viable products you can spin up and try and get out there, and not be bogged down in the day-to-day management of the infrastructure, which is no longer necessary.
And if you look back, just to add to that, and you thought, if we went back maybe 10 years and maybe even sooner, to do some of the AI services that are available now, we might need to hire a data scientist. You might need to have some really expensive resource within your organization to write that stuff. Of course, now having some of that baked in and those models baked into some of the PaaS services means that people actually have access to solve business problems that before would have been out of their reach to be able to solve. And I think actually from someone that likes innovating and creating new things, that's a really happier place for many people to be.
And I think happy staff, more innovative staff, better business, less recruitment costs, all of the things that come with that. Again, back to, growing revenue, reducing costs, which is the core concept that we're talking about here. So cool. I think with that then we've got two core themes, yeah? Let's reduce costs. Let's optimize that existing use from an IaaS perspective. But really, let's focus on how we drive value through PaaS services, through new initiatives, technologies like Fabric, like AI, etc., to really help our customers grow and accelerate their businesses as fast as possible. And I guess all I'll go for is closing comments. Really, is what would you give as the listeners as your one takeaway from this is cost optimization conversation?
Cost optimization is not something that you do once. It is an ongoing process, and it will change over time based on where you are. So having visibility, being able to make choices and do things differently is an ongoing process. So you're always doing cost optimization because your needs and draws on the business are always going to be different.
Excellent. Thanks, Wendy. Well, what do you leave everyone with?
I would say it's a change process, and it's one that carries on going round and round, and it starts and really centers around people. If you want to save money, don't think around technology, think around people, and then put the technology on afterwards, but make it people-centric.
Sounds good. Excellent. So thanks, everyone. I've been Rob Sims, Chief Technologist at CDW.
And I've been Wendy Carstairs from Microsoft.
And I've been Will Barlow, Microsoft Practice Lead at CDW.
Thanks, everyone. See you
Thanks
next
for tuning
time.
into today's episode. Be sure to check out the back catalogue for more great insights. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to reach out. Catch you next time.